All right. How you doing, Dave?
Good. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing chipper, Dave. This is Gridiron 360. We are going to do a little recap of Week 10 in the NFL from last week, and we are going to continue our new segment called
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh,
right.
Ooh, it's ugly. All right. Where shall we begin? Well, shall we begin with good?
I think so.
Let's begin with good. So this past weekend, or actually, I take that back. Monday Night Football. Great matchup. We talked about it, I think, in a preview. The only undefeated team left in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers, take on a division rival, chomping at their heels in the Seattle Seahawks. This game took place in San Fran. And, right out the gates, 10-0 San Francisco in the first quarter. And, second quarter, Seattle gets a score on the board, 10-7 at half, starts to chomp at the bit, continues to roll towards the end of the game, and we get a tie game, and Seattle takes the victory in overtime, 27-24. And quite frankly, a lot of especially the beginning of the game, it looked like San Fran, just like we're really on that train, was showing their strength and flexing their muscles. But our good of this week is the guy that I'm trying to think of who else might be able to be right up there with him for an MVP this year in the NFL, and there are going to be some guys, and there's still some time
Christian
left.
McCaffrey, maybe Dalvin Cook, depending upon how
but
Minnesota
they're back,
thins out.
so
yeah,
usually
back.
it's you probably want somebody at the helm, but Mr. Russell Wilson, I like you. You are good. You are a gamer.
So knowing, so loving.
He was not a thief. He'll make you believe that he is the best in the league.
Hit us on Facebook if you know what we're doing.
Listen, this guy, look, we like to see him, if you have him on a fantasy team, put up some points, and he can very well do that. I have him on a fantasy team. Didn't have the points he had a week or so ago. But from an NFL perspective and just an all-around human being, athlete, this guy gets it, man. And it's not, you go out, the guy goes out there and it's not like he's just got Odell Beckham out there and that's all he throws to. I mean, this guy has got a mishmash of dudes and he makes them better. They're good players. He makes them known players. He spreads the ball around. We saw at the beginning of the year with the whole Will Dissly at tight end and making him relevant, especially in the fantasy world. Dissly's out. They bring Luke Wilson back, former tight end for the Seahawks that was in Oakland and got cut. He's now hurt. So in comes this guy, Hollister, and just really, quite frankly, was the touchdown throw to Hollister at the end of the game to really push this thing to OT. No, I don't think it was in the fourth. I think it was in the third. But really, that was one of the critical plays of the game. I mean, just under duress, on the move, and just throws this just laser right into coverage in the back of the end zone to this guy. Not a lot of people probably know the Hollister guy. I mean, rightfully so. But again, Wilson just makes these guys a name. And it's just impressive, man. I mean, the guy is, 5'11", maybe 5'10".
Nah, I think he's
is he
6'1". I thought he was.
mean,
Maybe
he's
not.
a
I don't
big
know.
Guy. I mean, he's that the likeness of like a Drew Brees, shorter, but is really got a great arm, very accurate. Difference is he's got his legs he'll work with, and he used them in this game, not tremendously, but at the important times. It's just amazing. It's like he doesn't need to run all over the place like Lamar Jackson. He'll run when it's most important, picking up first downs, knows when to slide, doesn't get into the slide until he really kind of knows he's at that marker, because you know how it is with those slides. It's like all of a sudden he slides, and they pick up the ball, and they walk back about 5-7 yards. He gets it right. I just really enjoy watching a guy like this play. And, you know, I hear you with the McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. It's impressive, but he makes everybody else around him better. Yep. Okay? Whereas they're making their team better on their own, kind of. He makes everybody around him better, distributing the ball to everybody. And this is an amazing guy. I really, really appreciate it. And again, I said this as well. The character of Russell Wilson exemplifies what we need to see, not just in the NFL, but in all of sports.
Yep. Here's kind of my thing with this. So let me, if you go look, if you want to.
He's married to some hot chick.
Sierra Nevada. All right. So here's kind of my thing with this. So there's a lot of people, they look at MVPs and all this stuff, and it's a stats game in a lot of ways. For quarterbacks, it's wins and stats, which, quarterbacks generally get the most recognition, much like the Heisman Trophy, and it's understanding. But here's kind of the part. I want to paint a picture for you, if you don't mind. So we've got Russell Wilson. Let's play the stat game. 24-34. 232 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 5 sacks, QB rating 86.9. If you look at the stats, I don't know why we're talking about them, okay? Let's kind of look at this from San Francisco's perspective. Obviously, a monster defense, playing lights out right now. And they go ahead and force 4 turnovers against Seattle in this game and get those 5 sacks that I mentioned. So what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? And I'm going to flip the page, and I'm going to talk about our $130 million man, or whatever his contract was. Certainly a 9 figures. And Jimmy Garoppolo. 24-46, 248, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 5 sacks as well. So more yards by a little bit, worse passer, completion percentage, a little lower QB rate at 66.2. Now, Seattle's defense, I will tell you, if you want to look at this game, Clowney really showed up. What I love and why Russell Wilson, to me, is still the MVP of the game, and certainly this was, in my mind, an MVP performance, is something we've talked about in the past. Garoppolo went to hell. Garoppolo had not just a pick, but he had 2 fumbles that he lost. So while the challenge was in front of him and he was being challenged in a way he probably hasn't been challenged much this year, one, because he's been able to rely on the defense, but he's also been able to rely on a very strong run game. He's had a couple of really blow-up games, 4 touchdown games. I think it was it last week against Arizona, and then a game against Cincinnati, he tore it up. But here's the thing is, what I was so impressed with was this is, and you mentioned this kind of phrase, this is a next play guy. He has that uncanny ability, and I would say a guy like Tom Brady is the only one I've seen him do it for longer, able to forget what happened in previous plays and just continue to battle. It's a guy who is just never out of it. No matter how much you think he's out of a game, you just can't get him out of it. And again, he's mobile. Garoppolo's not so mobile. So, 5 sacks on Garoppolo's not crazy, but getting 5 sacks on Russell Wilson is pretty impressive.
It is.
So this is no chump defense. But for him, understand, as you just mentioned, down 10-0 on the road, tough. Comeback score. And Russell Wilson, just so we're clear, while I said Garoppolo was responsible for all 3 of San Francisco's turnovers, Russell Wilson had to deal with the fact that Chris Carson put the ball on the ground twice once on a receiving play, and then once on a run. So he's got his other player, and this is a run-heavy team when they're at their best. That and includes Russell Wilson. And then on top of that, we got Rashard, I'm only worth a penny, dropping the ball after 2 carries for 2 yards.
I like that.
So,
That was good.
he's got the complement of his team is not really helping him out. Hollister was great in the game, 10 targets, 8 receptions. Metcalf was solid, but only on 10 targets, only had 6 receptions. Nobody really blew it up offensively, and just when you watch this game in overtime, and this was kind of an ugly overtime, each team got possession, nobody scored. San Francisco then, obviously gets their chance, misses. It was a makeable field goal, and kicked the freaking thing in the tunnel. So San Francisco had their chance to win it.
People said that they were dodging it, walking through the tunnel.
Oh, there's a video of somebody a guy and a girl running away from it because it's about to hit him in the head.
Heads.
And so just to watch,
good.
to watch Russell Wilson, playing not the most spectacular game of his career, lead them down the field with limited time left and go take this game over was something special. And the truth of the matter is these are games you've got to win. I said it a while back. I don't want to say I'm not sold on San Francisco. They're a good team. But I always said there's that around week 5, and they've lasted a little bit longer. And maybe that's because they are that good, and I can concede that. But I said Seattle's the team to beat in my mind in the West. And right now, they get another game in Seattle at the end of the year. All right, take them on. And San Francisco's schedule gets very tough from here on out. They got a couple of cupcakes, but most of the rest, I think they got Green Bay left. They got some big boys left on their schedule. So this is Russell Wilson's time of the year. This is just and that, which is amazing because he's already in the MVP talk, and we're not even at Russell Wilson time yet.
Yeah, look, they got, just referring back to the schedule, they get the Cardinals at home, the Niners do, but then they have the Packers at home, the Ravens on the road, the Saints on the road, and then they'll have the Seahawks again at the end of the year on the road.
Yeah, so that's not an easy look on that schedule, and it's going to be important because we're talking about first-round buys, we're talking about home field advantage, all those things. And so, again, I just, to me, to be able to recover, and, again, Garoppolo, and not really trying to trash him, but he wasn't able to recover. In fact, he continued to struggle, whereas Russell Wilson just keeps moving forward. Again, he's never out of it. If you look at their games, they've not had the prolific defense of the past that they've had.
Not by any means.
Yeah,
no.
they're having to win games like 28-26. They've had some struggle games, but it's just like when you need a play, I can't say I've seen a guy in the NFL this year that's been able to provide that play more than him.
Yeah, look, you kind of, like, when you went through all those stats, like you said, it sounds ho-hum, but stats don't matter to this cat, bro. MVP doesn't matter to this cat, bro.
Nope.
All that matters is winning to him.
Yep.
And that's all that matters. He just wants to win, and it's not just for him. He is really the ultimate team guy. It's like I said, he does not have one favorite guy. He really never did. Even with Baldwin there, when Doug Baldwin was at receiver, even when they had Marshawn Lynch in the backfield, dude gets everybody involved.
Yep.
And to me, that's a winner. And that's how you're going to get it done. Ultimately, that gives you your best opportunity to get it done. Because when defenses have to then go into games and look at, offensive weapons and scheme against them, well, there's no really one guy in that offense outside of him, which he can make the plays, even if you scheme against him. He'll figure out. He'll either use his legs or this. There's no one guy you could say, like, how we talk about the Patriots taking the best option away. There's none there because if you try to do that, he's got rapport with everybody.
Yeah, and think about this. Prior to this youth explosion in the quarterback position, which has happened over the last probably 3 years or so, when we talk about your elite quarterbacks, think about the names. We go Brady, okay? We go Rodgers, Breeze. Anybody else I'm missing? Now we've skipped to Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, certainly.
I don't know if you can call them elite yet.
No, but I'm
But
just
they're-
saying. But when we
yeah.
talk about the best, we've started to insert those names. I never really hear Russell Wilson's name in that. Now let's think about something here. This guy's noticeably younger than Drew Brees, noticeably younger than Aaron Rodgers. Guess what? Every one of them's got the same amount of rings. We don't have a ring on Deshaun Watson, don't have a ring on Mahomes. And again, the only guy that stands above him in that category is who? It's Tom Brady, and Tom Brady is the GOAT. And if you don't think he's the GOAT, stop watching football because you are well, I can't say it. Never mind.
Yeah.
You're an idiot. I want to be relatively PC, but you're a moron. You are, because it's obvious. So again, and I don't want to elevate him past the status that he is, but I kind of watch this guy and I go, man, he really never gets the mention. And let's be honest, when we go look at, Seattle had some good defenses, and I give him that. But this guy has not been surrounded by elite offensive talent all that much. The best player he's ever had for a couple years was Marshawn Lynch when he was in beast mode.
Yeah.
So, I just look at that. His receivers have never been the who's who. I just watch it. And then they leave. I mean, look at, let's be honest, Paul Richardson was one of his guys. And he went and got his big contract in Washington. Where are you at, Paul? Where are you at?
Hello.
I'm looking. Paul.
PR Junior. Hello.
Paul to the principal's office. Paul to the principal's office, please. So anyway, I can't talk enough about it. Like, if you really just want to watch, and this is the in my mind the ultimate compliment. This guy's just a football player. He's not a quarterback. He's just a football player.
Yeah, man.
Football. And I watched this guy kind of get talked about the same way, and it shows you in his draft status in college. But I watched this guy play a lot in college, playing at NC State and Florida State. Even during some good years, had trouble with him, and he was just a beast and a gamer. And I can't say enough about him. I thought this game was a great representation of him. I think, even though it was not this clean, pretty stat sheet, it was a great representation of him. So, to me, spent a lot of time on it. Totally worth it. Very good.
Very good.
So, what's another good thing we saw this week?
Well, I got to tell you, man, and I'm going to give you a little Bill Manis history. When I was in 8th grade, I played football just outside of Annapolis, Maryland, for a team called Cape St. Clair. We were fortunate enough to go undefeated and win our championship, but our championship game was played. It was cold when we played. It was probably November in Maryland, and we were tied up throughout the whole game, going to OT. We get the little break at the end of the game, come back out of the locker, not as long as a halftime break, and wouldn't you know, there's a little snowfall. Boy, it was fun. Football in the snow is fun, and it's early and back. Because that Green Bay Carolina game, it was coming down, baby.
Yep.
And it's just so much. It's a different element. Everybody has to play in it, so you have to deal. Everybody on the field has to deal with it. Not all the guys that are in Carolina, and it gets cold in Carolina, but it's not like some of these guys haven't played in college in games like this. But the snow is coming down. Offensive linemen are on skates. People are slipping and sliding. The nice white trickling down from the air and just getting it on. A lot of running, harder to throw the ball, but the ball still was slung around the yard, really more so on the Carolina side, I have to say. Aaron Rodgers did well, but it was the Aaron Jones show for the most part, putting 3 TDs on the board.
Yep.
Football in the snow. My kids came downstairs. They were like, Dad, is it snowing there? I go, heck yeah, it is. Let me sit down and watch a little football with you, Dad, because it's fun for the whole
grab
family.
the blankie, snuggle up a little bit. One thing I like about snow, unlike rain, when rain comes, it's just sloppy. Snow isn't sloppy football, but it's, you spend all this time all week game planning against the other team. You got a game plan for snow. Again, rain, it is what it is. Yeah, the ball's wet, it's slick, but usually those games, are slop fests and there's no real strategy, because in snow, you actually have to revamp your passing game and then certainly commit to the run. It gets old school. It's a fun throwback. And defenses struggle because it's like you could beat them on the pass, but what's your key? I want to get who can get the best footing and who can make a move on their guys. I agree. It is football. It's why we watch it. As a big college football fan, the South kind of dominates college football from a fandom standpoint, I would say, in all my time moving around. But NFL football is ruled a little bit more by the North and a little bit more of that cold weather stuff. I love it. Love the traditional stuff. Love to see it. Love to see the guys when they get the little hand warmers flipped around in front of them.
I love it. I love seeing the brute offensive linemen out there in short sleeves. They don't have any long sleeves on, just rocking and rolling in the snow. No problem.
Not allowed to rub themselves in Vaseline like they used to in the old days.
Okay, that was a little TMI.
It's a real deal, man. Real deal.
I kid. But to look at this game, just kind of, from a statistical standpoint and what happened in the game. I mean, it was very entertaining.
Yep.
You're talking about a game that went into halftime. Packers up 14-10. And then they kind of took control in the third and put another 10 burger up there to Carolina's 0. But like I said, Kyle Allen, for a guy that's come in and taken the job pretty much from Cam Newton, this is the first time I think we've seen him in this much inclement weather. We're not talking about rain.
Sure.
He goes 28 of 43, 307, 1 TD, 1 pick. I mean, that's not too bad considering who he is. McCaffrey still got his jam on, and like we had went in the rundown in the player position groups for fantasy, all the receivers here: DJ Moore, 9 for 120. Curtis Samuel, 4 for 35 and a TD. Greg Olsen, 8 for 98. I mean, he's getting these guys involved and is really starting to shape up to be a pretty darn good quarterback. I mean, considering we know, Cam Newton is Cam Newton, and we've talked enough about him, but this guy is a quarterback. It's not a gimmick. I hate to say that with Cam, but the guy does. We say it over and over. Got a howitzer for an arm. Can run the ball. He's a beast. Doesn't have any touch. Accuracy is lacking. Doesn't have any touch. This guy's a quarterback. And we also have said over and over again that Carolina doesn't run through Cam Newton anymore. It runs through Christian McCaffrey. So to give him an actual quarterback, because we don't need a runner, he's the runner, to go to, do his thing, distribute the ball, and drop back and sling it around when need be, is a fantastic bonus for McCaffrey and for the entire team. And, I'm enjoying this, watching this play out. I think it's one of the fun things of the NFL that, I know that Gardner Minshew had a bad game last game, but it was kind of neat to see this kind of nobody, even though we knew who he was from Washington State, step into a role and all of a sudden turn heads. And this kid has done it, and it's not flashy, and you don't certainly hear much from him, and you're certainly not going to see him post-game with the babushka on. Okay, no weird clothing.
Well, I never want to say never, but
I guess not.
It's highly unlikely.
Look, Rodgers goes 17 to 29, 233, no TDs, no picks. But like I said, look, Green Bay is used to this weather, so they know what they need to do, and they did it. Running the ball, Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones each with 13 carries apiece. Aaron Jones racking up a 93-yard spot to Jamal Williams' 63. Aaron Jones drops 3 TDs in the end zone. Yeah, man. I mean, it was just a fun game to watch. And, it's cold all around the country. We're in Atlanta. It's really cold right now. I anticipate we're going to see a good many of these, maybe more so than we've seen in past few years. A lot of snow games outside of the dome games.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten colder. And you've seen some divisional races get a little bit interesting. You've got, obviously, Pittsburgh is probably one of the ones I really kind of point to. You got Pittsburgh getting stronger. They were 2-4, and now they're 5-4. Couple of big games they won against the Rams, and then before that, the Colts. And it was a little bit dicey there with Miami, but they came back and won. And now all of a sudden you got a Ravens team that's 7-2 in their division that has to play the Texans. And so if the Ravens lose, we're talking about a 1-game spread right there. Pittsburgh's schedule softens up a little bit. The Ravens, not cake, but a little, probably I would say a little bit tougher. So you got an interesting race there. And speaking of the Texans, you have the Colts who came, kind of fell back down with their injury to Brissett, had a bad loss last week. Now they're a game behind the Texans. Now it goes the other way. If the Texans lose and the Colts win, they got the same record. They both be at 6-4, and they play the following week. So that's a division that's also tightening up. You got with the fall of some of Kansas City. Yeah, you got the Kansas City game kind of. With them taking a loss, you got the Raiders all of a sudden stepping up. I said, the Chargers might have a chance, and the Chargers and the Raiders played. The Raiders won out. Now they're a game behind Kansas City. So
crazy.
So it's there's a lot of fun stuff going on right now. You got the Eagles at 5-4, trying with the Cowboys at 5-4, leading the division. I mean, this is what's great about the NFL is the ability for these teams to kind of flip scripts on previous years, but also just being competitive. It's the tough part about college football. You and I were talking about the other day. You're like, yeah, you lose. It sucks. And you're like, hey, I'm a Florida State fan. We lost first game of the year, and I'm already like, well, that season's over. And it's not truly over, but, everybody's idea is to go and win a championship every year.
Because every week matters in college.
And the NFL gives you the exact opposite flavor, and it's fun to watch. You're seeing teams climb out of holes they created, and you're seeing teams get exposed for a little bit of reality by playing tougher teams later in the year, maybe when their schedule sets up nicely. So, again, just a lot of fun. Good annual parody there. The annual parody taking shape at the NFL.
That's our next good, right?
Yeah, that's
annual parody taking shape.
Yeah, that's the good. So let's jump into the bad.
Whew.
You want to take number one?
Yeah, man. And I'll take it with the fact that we played each other in fantasy football this week, and one of my star receivers of the year, Cooper Kupp, put up a donut this week. A donut? I mean, I know the Steelers are surging, but a donut? And you said it. They'll probably put Minka up there against Cooper Kupp. Man.
I had to ask, just so you know, I sent a text in the middle of the game, and I'm like, is Cooper Kupp hurt? I couldn't find anything because, the guy is usually good for a couple of catches a quarter, and it was third quarter, and I'm like, this guy's throwing up a donut.
Yeah, and really, if you look at it from a statistics standpoint, in terms of all the receivers, like my hairline, all the receivers for the Rams, Robert Woods was 7 for 95, didn't see the end zone, but there were several times where the ball was being thrown to him that it just wasn't a great ball, and the defender was able to knock it down at critical times of the game.
Yep.
That's the thing. It was at critical times of the game. Goff, that's our bad number one.
Yeah.
Bad quarterback play out of the Rams. Jared Goff, 22 of 41, 243, no TDs, 2 picks. He looks lost. He looks like, and look, I don't want to completely fault Goff because there is, and the narrative has come out several weeks now, something wrong with that offensive line. It is definitely not what we saw last year.
And Gurley put the ball on the ground twice in this game too, which is that's not one of the things I would say about Gurley that I usually, could say, what, he's got a fumble thing.
Yeah. So, and I'll give it slight pass because you do need a little bit of time to do your thing as a quarterback. And it does kind of seem like every play the ball snapped and he's, whoa, but there are a few moments that he's not, and he's just not getting it. He's not getting it. And I guess my problem is, and we'll get into this as one of our uglies, but these young quarterbacks, like you mentioned, teams are going up, getting these guys, drafting these guys really high. I think Goff had a modest career at Cal, but it wasn't something that, again, I talk about, unfortunately, Trubisky, at North Carolina. It's like, what were you seeing there that you didn't see in a Deshaun Watson or even a Lamar Jackson, who had won the Heisman that year, that wouldn't want you to go after one of those guys, but yet this guy that started for a year? Like, the fact of their mechanics and, their head and how they play the game. Well, his mechanics could really be, well, look, man, you are NFL coaches and staff, okay? If you see a guy like Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson, who are extreme gamers, great athletes, superior talents, and got it going on between the ears, then can you not coach them up on the few little mechanical things to make them better?
Yeah, but I think I agree with you, but here's the challenge is it's what these quarterbacks have to run against when everything's breaking down. And you mentioned Trubisky. I mentioned this early in the year. I think it was after a couple of weeks into the year. Something I had heard, and I went back and looked at it, was Jared Goff's stats. And a lot of people earmarked it as the Bears game last year. If you'll remember correctly, that game from a quarterback perspective was probably one of the worst quarterback games in history, I got to believe. If I remember correctly, I think Goff had 5 interceptions. I know he at least had 4. In that game, Trubisky had 3 interceptions. And while Trubisky has been horrific this year, the thing you got to look at with Goff is he's a year removed from the Super Bowl. We're not talking about, a year removed from the Super Bowl. But since that game, and I would argue that it was actually the game before that they won, but he didn't play well, was against the Lions last year, where you started to see Goff come back down to earth. This high-flying offense started to get figured out. And again, I think that's going on right now. We had a segment just last week about, they aren't who we thought they were.
Yeah.
So this is happening to a lot of quarterbacks. And so it'll be kind of interesting. We'll go into some of what's going to go on with the quarterbacks next year. But this is a guy that he's got all the weapons. You can't argue weapons with him. You can't.
He's got maybe some of one of the teams with the most weapons available to his disposal.
Yeah. This is a game where we saw Blake Bortles come in. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Hecker. What is this deal with Hecker throwing the football? The guy's, he got a pick in this game, but I've seen play calling with this guy over the last 3-4 weeks where just crazy punt fakes and everything. It's just weird. But my point is, this is a team that's lost its identity. Their defense was very good last year. It wasn't the Bears. I don't think they were as good as the Bears. And they've fallen backwards. They obviously, the Gurley thing has become an issue, but it's games like this. Again, he fumbled the ball twice. Terrible. But he had 12 runs for 73 yards. It's almost like he could get going, but we can't figure out how to get him going. And then when he gets going, it's really choppy and not real effective.
Yeah.
The simple fact is Goff is not a strong quarterback at this point. He, like Trubisky, I don't know that Trubisky ever had really high confidence, but both of them are playing without confidence and have been for a significant amount of time. As bad as last year's Bears Rams game is, and that is the Sunday night game this week, as bad as it was quarterback last year, this year might be worse. It could be worse, if you can believe that. So that's our number 1 bad. Let's go to number 2. And I threw this one out there. The Kansas City Chiefs, everything except for their passing game is awful. Awful. What has happened to this team? For the Chiefs to lose this game, and what did he throw for 3 touchdowns in that game? Or did he throw for 4? Threw for 3, I think. 4? Did he get 4?
I'll get you right here. Go
I
ahead.
should know because he's my fantasy guy. But
I get you. You just keep
he's coming back off an injury. Mahomes looks sharp. Missed a big
36 of 50, 446 yards, 3 TDs, no picks. That's awesome, dude.
And when's the last time you saw a guy throw for 50 attempts and have a good completion percentage? He was 36 of 50.
whereas the winning quarterback for the Titans, Mr. Tannehill, threw 19 passes, 13 completions, only 181 yards, no picks, 2 TDs.
Yeah, and I mean, so you're.
But it was the Derrick Henry show.
Yeah, it was, but you're getting this from them. What has, you had a decent game from Damian Williams, but their running back carousel. First, I heard something to the effect of LaShawn McCoy was not going to be playing the rest of the year unless there was an injury, because there was talk about whether it was his fumble from a game or two previous that kind of pulled him out of the mix. Now the latest I'm hearing is they're trying to really minimize his workload to save him for later in the year. Remember what we mentioned?
They may not be there.
Yeah, they're in a playoff battle right now, and I'm not so sure that the team out of that division, the second team, is going to be a wild card. So to me, this team is lost. And even in the games where Mahomes has played well, this isn't the only time they've almost or did lose with Mahomes playing lights out.
Yeah.
So it's a scary prospect, an offense that, people were like, yeah, maybe they're not going to be as good as last year. This guy threw 50 friggin' touchdowns last year. And the running game is atrocious. And, I mean, it seemed like the defense was starting to figure some things out when Matt Moore was in there. Well, they forgot whatever they learned. That's for sure. This is not a daunting Tennessee offense by any stretch of the imagination, but I got to give Tanny a little credit, man. The guy just came in. He gets it done. He's getting it done. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a resurgence like Alex Smith, not quite to the MVP level, but just seeing a guy that kind of has that running pass, don't really love either part of his game too much, but just kind of coming in and winning. Remember, a big reason why Tannehill, he had some crappy games, but he was also playing for the Dolphins, but he was also injured a lot, and that was a big thing with him. So, I don't know. Chiefs, outside of their passing game, I don't know. It's ugly.
It is ugly, my friend, and, well, it's bad. Because it's not, we do have.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's bad. Yeah,
not ugly.
You use the right words.
Yes, use the right words. Let's not confuse the audience. So our last bad, man, how did this happen? The New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees is back already. It's not like it's the first game back from his thumb thing. He looked good in the last game. You got Kamara back. You got right now, the best receiver in the NFL in Michael Thomas. They got a nice little tandem with Latavius Murray. You got a defense in New Orleans that has been playing very well, especially in their front. I talk about Cam Jordan being one of those guys over and over again that can wreck a game.
Yep.
And they get the lowly Falcons, who are coming off a bye, whose defense is absolutely atrocious, whose offensive line can't block anybody, who no longer has Mohamed Sanu in the mix because they shipped him off to New England, who has a backfield that is because Devonta Freeman is long in the tooth, and they travel down. And this is a big rivalry in the NFC South. Falcons and Saints don't like each other. Fans don't like each other. And we're going into their house. And at no point in time was there any life from the Saints. Any. And this bad Falcon team just railroads them in their own dome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, they didn't get in the end zone, Drew Brees, but I mean, 32 of 45, passing a little too much dink and dunk because he only had 287. Here's the thing, he took 6 sacks. I got to tell you, I haven't seen the Falcons defense play like this for years. I'm talking back to Super Bowl year. I watched it. Grady Jarrett was just blowing it up. I mean, they just were getting pressure. They were doing it at all the right moments. The thing I saw, and this is very, very much not characteristic of Sean Payton's ability to adjust in game, they only ran the ball 11 times in this game, which, it's, again, the big problem with this with New Orleans, Falcons put up 26 points. The Saints didn't turn the ball over either, so it's not like this was a turnover fest. They didn't play particularly great defense, but they just couldn't get anything going. But putting up a 9-burger, what's with the 9-burger for the Saints? But here's what I will say. I walk away from that game going, I don't think I learned anything. It's not like I learned something special about the Saints.
Honestly,
if they
it's
do
like
it again,
they decided to take the week off.
Yeah,
the whole
yeah.
team,
Yeah.
including Sean Payton,
with the
great coach.
exception of Michael Thomas, who once again was Michael Thomas. I don't know if you can really argue there's a better receiver in the league right now. I mean, 14 targets, 13 catches, 152 yards. Didn't get in the end zone. Not sure he really had a chance. Didn't watch every single catch to tell you that. But, the guy's he's a beast. But it just, this one I kind of walk away from and I go, it's bad. But I don't start sweating whether this team can go to the playoffs. I don't.
No, because the way the division is lined up, they've got everything in front of them. The only team that's even remotely close to them is the Carolina Panthers. And I mean, the Panthers right now sit at 5-4. And if you look at the schedule laying ahead of them, I mean, they have a couple easy games. I mean, they do get the Falcons this week, but then they still got to play the Saints twice.
Yep.
They have to play the Seahawks. They do get them at home, and then they do have the Colts towards the end of the year.
They get the they play the Niners?
No.
No.
They did already. Remember that was that game they got walloped 51-13 in San Francisco. And whereas on the flip side of the ball, you look at the Saints, they're out there still in prime control, sitting at 7-2 with those two games still with Carolina ahead of them. They have the Falcons, they have the Titans, they do have the Colts too, and they do have to play the Niners. But
that's who I was thinking of. The Saints have to play the Niners.
But I mean, look, but they play the Niners in New Orleans, and they play the Colts in New Orleans. So. I mean, there's everything out there for them, and we've seen what New Orleans can do, and this isn't a team that's not been there before, and Sean Payton's a good coach. We'll have him on track. It really, really, really looked like they just never came out of the locker room.
Yeah, and I will say this: I'll admit a little bias here as to why they make the list because they make the list, but we're especially on them for bad because we DFS stacked this team and
we did. I mean, for all intents and purposes, that made a lot of sense.
Yep, and the Superdome was not so super. It was more like the Porta Potty Dome.
Well, don't say that because Hurricane Katrina really was the Porta Potty Dome. People were living in there.
So it's got a double meaning.
Yep.
There we go. All right, so that wraps up our bad. Now what do we go to?
The ugly. What? The ugly.
UGLY. You ain't got no alibi. You ugly. What?
You ugly.
All right, so where do we begin? Because the ugly's the fun one for me, but where do we begin?
You start us off.
All right, I'm going to go with this one because we're going to kind of touch back to it, this idea a little bit. Ugly for me. If you haven't heard yet, there are inklings out there that Colin Kaepernick is going to have a pro day of sorts, kind of an exhibition to get himself an opportunity with the NFL teams. Now, I will say, here's coming some of the things that are out there, and with Kaepernick, you got to kind of see it to believe it. There's talk that Philbin will be running.
Regis?
No. What's his first? I forget. What's his first name again? The guy.
Joe
Philbin. Thank you. Yeah, former Miami
Not
Dolphins
Regis?
coach. Will maybe running it. There's also talk that this may also be kind of a hoax and that he may not actually get this. So a little bit of conflicting reports, but thoughts are that he'll do it. Now, we've talked about guys who are not who they thought they were, and some teams could be desperate. And he provides this year's solution with the trade deadline having already passed and the limited opportunities. To me, why this is ugly, look, I don't like what he did. I don't. I'm kind of past the point,
You're
though.
an American.
Yeah,
You're American.
Yeah, I'm kind of past the point of
giving a crap.
of caring.
too.
My whole thing with him, though, I'll be honest with you, is I just never thought he was that good. I know people want to go back to the Super Bowl year, but be honest and go back and look at some of the statistics he put up post that time and some of his abilities and inabilities to get things done. And the simple fact was he was likely at that time a backup quarterback that would have brought a circus sideshow with him. So I understand why pro teams didn't want to touch it. And, the NFL's got a reputation problem, and they've had one for about 4 or 5 years between the domestic violence, between gun charges, drug charges, certainly this type of issue that they've had, the kneeling. I mean, they've got some things that they never really dealt with properly. So to me, what I think is going to be ugly about this is it almost just opens up this can of worms again, because I'm not really a believer that he's going to get a legitimate shot. Not even really sure from a sheer talent standpoint. I could say he doesn't deserve it, but let's be honest. We just went through that they aren't who they thought they were.
That's right.
There's a whole lot of backup quarterbacks starting in the NFL right now. I mean, really,
I hear you.
there
but
are.
when he was the year that he was in San Francisco and they made a run was what, 1 year?
Yep. The Harbaughs.
Goff was in the Super Bowl last year.
Yep.
Here's all I have to say. I got one 4-digit number for you. 2016. What year is this?
It's 2016.
Colin Kaepernick his last NFL snap was in the year 2016.
Okay.
We are 3 years removed. I don't care how great shape you are in. I mean, let's look at Le'Veon Bell. He's a phenom running back. Took a year off, not because he was hurt, because of the contract. Stayed in shape. Comes back, and let's be honest. There's a difference between being healthy and in shape and being in game-ready shape. And I'm not seeing the old Le'Veon in New York that we saw in Pittsburgh. Call it the scheme, call it the team, call it the blocking, call it the quarterback. I don't care. He was such an incredible specimen on the field, and you could still see him in the Jets' backfield trying to do those old things, being patient, waiting for the blocks to open up so he can blast through a hole once he sees it. And he's trying to, but it's just not quite there. I don't care what you say. He's not the same guy. And that was one year removed from the NFL, really with not much distraction. And this guy has been gone for 3 years. I don't care what shape he's in. There is a difference between being in shape and healthy and being in NFL game-ready shape. And I don't care what you say. It's a gimmick. You bringing him in now, it's a gimmick. Okay, you're trying to spark something. I don't know what it is. I don't think any team would literally try to do it for the media frenzy that would become of this thing. But they think they have something, and work them out till you're blue in the face, man. You're not going to know what he's capable of doing till he gets under center
live action
and goes live. He's 3 years removed, and let's be honest. What's happened in the past 3 years in the NFL? The game has completely started to shift. That fast pace, the college game's starting to leak in way more and more.
Which you could almost argue, though, that fits his skill set a little bit more.
Maybe it does, but again, it's changed. And now we've talked about it too. Defenses are starting to figure some of that stuff out.
I will say this. I get your point with the gimmick. I think it's not that, though. I will say. I think it's more how desperate teams are because they're finding out their quarterbacks aren't who they thought they were, which we've heard that before.
Yep.
I would say this. This would be better suited to do in the offseason. I don't have a problem with anybody giving a chance. It's worthless if he is not going to be a starter. This whole thing is a charade because you're going to get all the questions and people are going to go to him. And I will say a lot of NFL people, these are players and former players coming out saying you just need to shut up and play. And because the truth of the matter is he does have a right to say whatever he wants.
Sure.
He does not have a right to represent an NFL football team. And that's kind of what this all came down to. So here's my thing. What I would do, because of what you're saying, going in mid-season and then having to face live action immediately, I could see this. Do it in the offseason. There are teams that are desperate for quarterbacks, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Get the guy some extensive preseason work and see what he looks like and let him go win a job, and then I got no problem.
Okay.
I got no problem. But this to me is ugly because it just it's the stink of desperation in the NFL for the mistakes that you've already touched on.
So far removed. I mean, like, honestly, I think it's got nothing to do with all of his nonsense. My issue, if I were an NFL team or a GM, is like, bro, you haven't taken a live NFL snap in 3 years. Nonetheless, let's move on.
You got to win, man. That's what it comes down to. And I don't know that you
The
can
next
win.
ugly, which I will start up, and we won't take long on this, and that is my New York Football Giants.
Well, it's not just that. It's all of New York football.
It is all of New York football, but you go in. We had talked last week in this segment about one of our bads being the plane crash that was the New York Jets, and we get the Jets and the Giants. It's a home game for the Jets, and the Giants just stink it up, man. Like, they made Sam Darnold look like he was an all-star. He went, even though Daniel Jones actually had a great day from a statistical standpoint. Darnold goes 19 of 30, 230 yards, 1 TD, no picks. DJ goes 26 of 40 for 308, 4 TDs and no picks. Now, we were manhandled, I feel like, in this game by one man on their defense, and that was Jamal Adams. And it wasn't just him coming back, not a fumble, took the ball from Daniel Jones'
thank you.
hands and just ran in the end zone. But all day, the guy was all over us. Saquon, I don't know what's going on. I guess he's a little banged. I mean, Jamal Adams had 8 tackles, 1 assist, 2 sacks, and that's not even talking about the taking the ball and running in for a touchdown. He was all over us. We couldn't find an answer. Solder, our offensive lineman we paid all this money for, is now banged up, and I don't know if he's worth a hoot anymore. And really, Saquon, 13 carries for a yard? Come on, man. What is going on with the New York Giants? Now, the bright light that we have mentioned a few times is, our other rookie, wide receiver out of Auburn, Darius Slayton, had 10 catches, 121 yards, 2 TDs. And even beyond that, Golden Tate had a good day, 4 for 95 and 2 TDs. And so, the decimation that we've had over the years and losing Odell and all the injuries and Sterling being hurt, we do have options. They're not superstars, and hopefully we can pick up maybe somebody really good to complement that. But man, I'm confused. I'm really confused because I didn't think we'd, just go and destroy the Jets. But this is a winnable game. This is a winnable game for the Giants. Okay, Le'Veon Bell is Saquon Barkley is better than Le'Veon Bell at this point.
Yeah, but
okay, but this year, I just.
Here's to
I'm
me.
Upset, Dave.
I'm gonna go a little higher.
My Giants tickets aren't selling, Dave.
Yeah, that's scary. That's scary because that's a ticket that's pretty hard to get. I'll say this. This is my problem with what's going on with both New York teams. We know the Jets ownership has been pretty poor. It's been pretty poor for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is translated into poor front office, right? You mentioned a couple of things. Now, I'm gonna say the Giants, to me, have made some good moves in the past that I've liked, but this is not the Meridad Giants. Like, there's been some changes in the way this team's been run. There's been changes in some of the decision-making. So I'm concerned about where they're at from the top. Jets, I expect. Giants, no. They're a perennial. They're a team that recovers. They're a team that recovers. They lose guys, they recover. They lose guys, they recover. They're not doing that right now. Now, then I go to some things that you brought up was they're kind of, I will almost say, the Giants made some very curious moves, like getting rid of Odell Beckham, but then going inside and Golden Tate. Curious. You brought up, you talked quite a bit about the Leonard Williams, like bring him in, but that's where our strength is. That one doesn't make sense. Now, they do want to re-up him, which only made sense for the amount of draft picks they gave for him. But so they do some of these things that are kind of curious. They've got some issues to work through. I like Daniel Jones as a quarterback. He's fumbled more than anybody in the NFL. That is a problem.
Big problem.
That is a problem. Here's my thing. The 2 best players on the team for each team respectively, not necessarily the 2 overall best players, but the 2 best players for each team are Saquon Barkley and Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell has been absolutely atrocious this year. He is the most talented player on that offense, no doubt. But they have just destroyed him. Then on the other side, you got Saquon Barkley, who has had some flashes, but he's been rendered ineffective for most of the season. And this is an all-world type talent at running back. I love this guy, and I can't go 13 attempts for 1 yard.
It's painful to watch, bro.
I love to say Barkley just played terrible, but it wasn't. There was way more to it. Number one, you bring up guys like Nate Solder. First of all, nobody steals anything from the Patriots. When I outbid the Patriots, I go, oh, wait a minute, I just made a mistake.
You are
so
spot on,
let me just
bro.
tell you. I mean, that's just an example. So you got all these things going on. What I don't like, and again, this is where the leadership of the Giants, and particularly the ownership, used to step in, is this idea that you brought up that they've got a real serious problem with their scheming ability on defense. I know they're very limited on talent, but there's ways to disguise some of that deficiency with any NFL team, and it's Shermer and the GM. Is it Gettleman? Is that his name?
Yep,
Gettleman.
Dave Gettleman.
They seem like they really want to hang with this defensive coordinator, and this they need to make a change.
Betcher is just a travesty.
And that could kill
Shermer's
Shermer's career
this week and said he's not changing anyone on his staff.
Right. So you got that issue. Now you've got the Jets coming out this week. I mean, we've made fun of Gase. I mean, Jesus, go look at any
I know.
meme or any like kind of video, and you got Gase with these bug eyes, not knowing what he's doing. He already got canned from the Dolphins, and look where the Dolphins are right now. And I won't totally blame him for that, but he played a role. And now they're saying that his job is safe. And so I kind of just look at it and go, what are you doing? What are you doing? And so I think the Giants have more building blocks to work with. There's just some really curious things going on that is very un-Giants-like to me. And then the Jets continue to be in disarray, but almost seem to be like, okay, let's just stay here.
I hear you. Well, listen, we have a home game with the Dolphins December 15th. Want to go? Because I have 3 tickets, lower end zone, great seats. Those won't sell. I could give them away. They may not even be used.
If I lived in New Jersey, maybe.
Nice. Last ugly that we will get to. Next year's quarterback carousel, and that really is a pressing conversation based on it's really not the veteran quarterbacks. It's these rookie 2-3 year in quarterbacks, sophomore year, maybe junior year, that are in the NFL that were high draft picks that teams gave up a lot to go up and draft.
Mm-hmm.
And they could be right back in the same boat, much like Arizona did, shipping Rosen off and took him first pick overall year before last, and see you later.
Yep.
We're going to take another one this year, first overall. I mean, I don't know how you can build a team like that, but this is a topic. Go. It's ugly.
All right, so let's talk about teams expected this year to be strong to dominant. We've already talked about the Rams. Rams got to make a decision. They've just paid all this money. I don't even know what their financial ramifications are with Goff at this point.
No pun intended.
Yeah. That wasn't a pun intended because I had to think about it for a minute.
There you go.
But so you've got a Rams team that listen, they have just leveraged their future for today. I mean, Ramsey, they got to pay him. So much so they had to get rid of Marcus Peters just to trade for him. Then who did they get rid of? They got rid of Talib. They dumped his contract to Miami so they can afford to re-up Ramsey. You've got Aaron Donald just got his monster contract. You've got some aging guys on defense. They got Fowler coming on free agency. So these are big players for them. On offense, you got a problem. You just paid Gurley the mother load. You bring the Brinks truck in for him, and he's ineffective to injured. So there's a team that's got to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. And again, I haven't even looked into what the financial ramifications are to getting rid of Goff. Again, sticking with that same this week's game, Mitch Trubisky, you had a Bears defense. They just paid Khalil Mack. They've got some very smart contracts defensively, but they are chewing up a lot of money. They're going to have to pay Eddie Jackson. So that's a big one because he's probably one of the best safeties in the league. They got all that on defense. They've paid some big money for some receivers. They are lucky in their running backs, not a big situation. Their offensive line has been a disaster, so they're going to have to do something on offensive line. and they've got Mitch Trubisky, and they can't afford to miss that rookie quarterback, contract. And if they are going to, they're going to have to go really the Rams route and go and pay a bunch of money and leverage your future. And this is a team without a first-round draft pick this year. So you got teams like that. You've certainly there's definitely some players in the draft, but you've got teams like the Titans. Are they going to hang on to Tannehill because they've obviously moved on from Mariota? The Buccaneers have to make a huge decision on Jameis, which isn't looking too good. Miami's obviously in need of a quarterback. I mean, can you ride with Fitzmagic? Maybe. Browns got to start asking questions about Baker Mayfield and whether he's the guy. Then you've got the aging quarterbacks, guys like Phillip Rivers, who has definitely lost something this year. Matt Ryan lost something too as well. His dead money is brutal for the Falcons.
Yeah, dude, that's tough.
Yep. Bengals, are they set with their 4th-round pick to go that route? They clearly have also moved on from Dalton.
From Big Red.
So now here we go. So I got all these teams in this list that need to do something. Some of them not going to have the draft status to go and take one of these young quarterbacks. But again, you're starting over. And now, this is kind of the amazing part with this. You got Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger. Are you set on Mason Rudolph? Maybe. Maybe if he finishes the year out strong, are you feeling okay there? Colts, Jags, teams that, have spent some money, but are they really set? So you got all these teams, and now we're talking about, this is the interesting part. So you got a Cincinnati team that's the worst in the league, 0-9, and they're going to lose Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's going to be on the top of this list. At least the top section. All right, let me. Let's go to other names. Cam. Yeah, I hear you. Cam Newton. Well, the problem with Cam Newton is the best part of his game he can no longer do. Are you willing to bet on a Cam Newton pocket passer? Eagles, another team that could be in some trouble. They got to make it Mariota. Yes, I did. I mentioned that they've moved on. Yeah, Marcus Mariota is going to be available.
He's going to be on the block.
Maybe Jameis Winston becomes available. So again, what is interesting to me is, and I got a little bit fooled by it. As I said, it's really cool starting the year was we really have 20 quarterbacks that look like they could be valuable. Well, man, a lot have fallen out of favor, and their play has proven that it was not by accident. Redskins, Haskins, they're going to play him this year. Now they're committed to him, but that's another one that could blow up in their face. So is Kyle Allen the guy in Carolina? It just, these things are building. You got the Cowboys probably about to put Dak Prescott on a franchise tag. So where does that relationship go?
What happens with Baker? I mean, like, you still believe in it, but like, it's not good, and he could continue to regress, and it doesn't matter how many toys you give him. Obviously, that's not helping.
The idea is, I believe next year, and I'm not saying this should happen, but I think it will. I believe you're going to have Cam Newton, Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston. That's probably the 3 that I'd go with right now that are going to be starting quarterbacks in the league next year for someone else.
Yeah.
That is where this league is at, and I don't think any team that picks one of those 3 up is going, I'm going to the Super Bowl.
Well,
somebody might think with Cam, but it's not happening.
I do have to tip my hat to a few teams, though. The Indianapolis Colts. Okay. How do you survive losing a man like Andrew Luck? They had a
Frank Reich.
But they had a good game plan in mind all along. I mean, Brissett isn't all worldly, but he is an NFL quarterback.
I forgot about the Broncos too. There's another one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't know if you said those or not. Here's another guy, and I'm not saying this guy and I don't know if he could take his team to the Super Bowl. But after so many years of him being in the league, and especially seeing his brother when we took him so high in New York being an absolute trash bag, no offense, David, but Derek Carr, man.
Yep.
He's not a superstar, but you know what? He's an NFL quarterback is what he is.
I agree.
And you can
he's a starting he's a starting NFL quarterback.
You can, as a coach and an offense and a team, you can count on.
And he's also not a bridge.
Yeah,
like to me, those 3 guys I just mentioned are bridges to your next quarterback.
Right.
So
he's not the stopgap. So and here's another one too. And it's not totally fully written out yet, but in his second year, and he pre-draft, there was a lot of hype about him because of the cannon of an arm and the size of him and his ability to run, which has been toned down a little bit this year. But then as the draft came, he quickly started to slide back as one of the top even 3 quarterbacks, and that's Josh Allen.
Yep.
He's done a good job.
Yep.
And, those are NFL quarterbacks. Like you said, they're not stopgaps. They are guys that you can put in there every week and count on. You're not perfect. None of these guys are the GOAT, and none of them will ever get to be the GOAT. Okay? But it's not just Tom Brady and then the Roy bus for all these other quarterbacks.
Yep.
There's some good quarterbacks out there.
Yep.
This guy's good. And, it is quite the craziness. So
I will say, though, I want to add just one last little quick point. I saw something today that said, the NFL has never seen a guy like Lamar Jackson. And I disagree. We saw him. His name was Michael Vick. Okay? The difference is, I think, and we talked about this, John Harbaugh, before they made this pick, went to his coaches and said, guys, we can draft this guy, but we are going to have to completely rethink the way we run our offense. And you want to know what they did? They did. Do just that.
Yep.
And that is the reason why he's having success. Whereas the Falcons went, well, we're going to play a traditional offense. We're just going to add this extra wrinkle of Michael Vick's running ability, and it got him killed. And then he had to learn to stand in the pocket and throw balls that he can't throw. And he was only so good in that scenario. And again, obviously there was a downfall in his career, and maybe that would have changed if he wouldn't have made some of the decisions he made. But my point is, it's going back to what you said about Josh Allen. You drafted Josh Allen. Josh Allen is never going to be your prolific pocket passer. I don't care how big his arm is. But if you play him to his strengths, can you win? Derek Carr wins games, but you never see him throw for 400 yards. You just don't. And I don't know that you ever will. But he goes in there. They run the ball.
Won't throw a bunch of picks. He won't have
exactly
less TDs and more picks.
Play to his strengths, create confidence in who he is, and that's so hard to do because I don't care if you're the most talented quarterback out there. Players have been ruined by trying to put the proverbial round peg in a square hole kind of thing.
Yep.
And so I agree, but it'll be interesting to see, especially given some of these aging quarterbacks going out. The Lions with Stafford. I mean, Stafford's got a pretty significant injury. How long it keeps him out for? But a broken bone in the back, that's teams that are going to need to start thinking about the future. And unfortunately, we thought there was this new wave of quarterbacks coming in.
And they're not who we thought they were?
Yeah, it's the same story it's always been.
Yeah.
People figure them out, and that's why there's always a very small handful of elite out there.
Yep. So that's going to wrap up NFL recap for Week 10, our good, bad, and the ugly segment. We'll get this out and up as soon as we can. We'll jump back tomorrow to knock out a little preview of NFL Week 11. It is Thursday, so we do have Thursday night football. A little Pittsburgh Steelers at 5-4 travel to the Cleveland Browns at 3-6. Kareem Hunt back in the fold. We'll see how he affects the game from the Browns offense. The Browns coming off the schneid last night with a win, but
last week.
But the Steelers resurging from that slow start. Their defense looks great, and I think they'll give Baker some fits. I anticipate a slow game, a lot of field goal activity. It's probably going to be cold. Cleveland's not inside, so we will have to see. But I don't want to dwell on that. We'll dive deep into the weekend's games as we get
and recap that game when we do it.
Yeah. So we appreciate you for listening. Get out there and take a peek on the Facebook at this. We put up some of our posts from last week's Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Fun stuff. Make comments. Let us know what you think. And please go subscribe to our page on YouTube and on iTunes. It's just a click. You're not going to get bombarded, but it helps us, and we'd appreciate it. And we will see you next time, as always,
on the gridiron.
Have a lovely day.